everyone. Welcome to the weekly recap. So we'll do a bigger announcement at the end, but we have our G4G live starting this week on Wednesday at 6 Eastern, which is 5 Central. We'll do a much bigger announcement at the end.
Yeah. So we're launching it next Wednesday at 6. That time could change depending on what we decide to do with that going forward. It's not a weekly podcast. It's basically a monthly podcast. That's what we'd like to do. A monthly show.
Yeah.
It's really kind of, not so much of a podcast. It's more of a live type presentation that will have the ability to grow as time goes on. Mm-hmm. And if we can, we'll do 2 a month. So that'd be nice to kind of get into a habit of doing that. But I don't know. I'll ask you. I don't know if there's enough information to do 50 plus shows a year.
Hard to say.
That seems like a tough thing to pull off, at least from my vantage point. And then also you're very busy, so it makes sense for us to do this, as often as we possibly can, which that's where we are right now with those numbers. So.
Yeah, and we don't get a weekly recap in every week, partly because of my schedule, but honestly more so driven by what we have to talk about.
Absolutely, yeah.
We're not going to put something out if we have really boring things to demonstrate a video about.
Definitely.
So we're shooting for twice a month. Probably won't always be twice a month, but at least once a month.
Yes, definitely.
Whenever we have something good to talk about, we'll do a little bit more at the end about what that's going to be. So a couple of big topics this week. Not a whole lot still really going on. We have the DICE Summit keynote that Phil Spencer did. We have some follow-up from a Twitter conversation and an ongoing conversation from videos that we've done about the kind of the comparison of Netflix and Games Pass.
Yeah.
And then a little bit about Walking Dead, which we'll save for the end since not everybody's a Walking Dead.
Yeah, if you're not into Walking Dead, you can cut off at the very end.
So we'll warn you when that's coming. So Phil Spencer did let's call it an interesting speech at the DICE Summit.
Yes.
And we have a shout out to someone who posed a really interesting question. And so I guess I'll just preface the speech in the most basic way that I can. We'll link the speech if you haven't caught it. A lot of you, if you're into gaming enough that you're watching us, you've probably seen it or heard a lot about it by now, but we'll link the actual speech. I guess suffice it to say it was a little off the gaming topic.
Yeah, it's DICE, and we've seen this type of thing at DICE before, so it's not like he's in uncharted waters.
Okay, that's a good way of thinking of it.
Yeah, but on some level, maybe you kind of hope that it would be uncharted waters, and that we would maybe stick to what we do as far as the gaming industry is. Being about games and gaming, that would be, there's been an outcry of, and Phil has even said, I've seen the memes. There's been an outcry of people asking for them to start to double down and triple down and quadruple down on games, and we're still waiting. So we're still waiting for that. Maybe the next speech.
Well, and that speech kind of pointed to the
identity
fact
politics.
That their focus is in politics right now.
Seems to be a little bit of that,
and not maybe. Hopefully, they can be doubling as being in politics and being focused on games. But it kind of seems like that would be hard to be in both.
I hate to say this, but on some level, there was a moment or two where I was like, is this whole thing designed to give praise to your boss, Satya? Is this, because there was a couple of moments where it came across that to me. And I know I'm going to be on the outside of this. I've already heard a lot of opinions. People seem to be looking at it as very positive and a very good thing. So, if you see it that way, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade. But it seemed to be like, oh, let's praise this guy that's our boss. And I've seen that kind of thing before at companies I've worked for. That's
kind of what I saw in it.
Yeah, you've worked for a few. I've worked for a lot of companies in a short period of time. So I got to see some very interesting politics. Some very interesting...
It's very company politic.
Yeah, some schmoozing and some interesting things go on around behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So, whenever you see certain things, it kind of rings a bell in your mind. And you're like, I've seen this before.
Seen this.
So, that is what it is. We'll go more into, I think, the way we feel about those things on the live show.
I definitely have more that I want to say specific to the speech that I'll say.
Yeah, it might not be the first live show. It might end up being one of the subsequent ones that we do because, we're going to ease our way into that type of thing and not really be about politics. Right. We're not going to discuss politics.
Yeah.
But getting back to essentially what it was.
So we were posed a really interesting question. Shout out to Gary. Gary's been one of our greatest supporters for a really long time, and he does see through things like this and finds the deepest of questions that would come from something.
I got to say, Gary is very intelligent, and you know, it was a great question for him to pose for us.
So he basically said maybe a great topic would be a way to protect your digital library. I have 300 plus digital Xbox games, and the threat of losing my entire library over a false claim is existent.
Yes, yeah.
And so essentially just to kind of put a couple of points together as to how he got to that.
From the keynote speech.
From the keynote speech. So the speech essentially talked about, I guess a good word would be sensitivities.
Yeah.
And the fact that Xbox culture has been really zoning in on kind of people offending other people in the gaming culture. Is that a good way of putting that?
Yeah.
And so essentially they were talking kind of about, and not even talking about it, but implying that they would be cracking down on people being offensive to other people.
People being offensive, the word toxic or toxicity was used quite a few times.
In some cases where I would not necessarily consider that strong of a word to even necessarily apply. And I think that's what Gary is seeing.
Yeah, definitely. You know, in the future, I'll go into more of an explanation. But, you know, that word used to mean something different than what it now means.
That's a strong word.
It is.
It's like the word hate.
Yes, it very much is. And now it's being thrown around so often that it's, you know, for other people, it builds in meaning. It actually loses meaning for somebody like me.
Yeah.
But, so essentially what Gary is getting at is that, say you're accused of being toxic. Say you're on PSN or Xbox Live or the next Nintendo, you know, digital platform that's coming out, that they're coming out with later this year, and somebody reports you, all right, and they report you for being toxic, and you know that gets back, and you have a strike or whatever it is, and they have a system for that. Well, what if it goes even further? What if that person then gets their buddies to also report you? Now you've got 4 or 5. You know, at what point in time are they going to say, well, this person is a toxic individual, we've got to get rid of them, we don't want them on our network? Because it very much sounded to me like he was saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that we don't want those people. We don't want them as customers.
Yeah.
So then, you know, where do you draw the barriers there? Where are the lines where you can decide who truly is toxic and who isn't? You know, what's the barometer for that type of thing? Yeah. Gary's right to be worried about that, because
very much so.
Say he's awesome. You know, you had people complaining about Star Wars Battlefront because they were getting their butt kicked online and saying, oh, it's the progression system. The progression system sucks. No, it's you. You suck. Other people did it. Other people unlocked everything in short periods of time. Yeah. You're just not that good at playing that game online. Maybe you're better at Gears. Maybe you're better at Halo or something else. Yeah. Who knows what it is?
Definitely.
But yeah, if someone doesn't like that you're shutting them out, they can accuse you of these things, and it can lead to possibly what Gary is thinking about, which is that you lose your library.
You own your games digitally, so your account gets banned, and your games are attached to your account, and a ban is completely permanent.
Yeah.
So you lose all of the money that you put into all that. Sure, if you want to start up a new account, you maybe can. Your console can also get banned, so you may have to buy a new console to even do that, and you've lost the money for the console and the money for all of your games in your digital library, which is interesting because it's coupled with the fact that Xbox is also, and all the other companies will be following suit shortly, moving in a digital direction of how you own your games.
Yes, yeah.
And so basically what I would summarize the whole thing as is this word toxic it's getting used more and more and more, and the definition of it is getting broader and broader and broader.
Very broad.
It's almost so broad now that I see, and I'm really probably referring to Twitter more than anything, I see the word toxic used to refer to someone who doesn't have the same opinion that I do.
Yes, yeah.
Not like they're being really hateful toward me. They don't have the same opinion that I do.
Yes.
So you get into a party with someone who has a different opinion, and now you can ban that person, essentially. All you have to do is get some people who you're already friends with to agree with you about that. And
this has actually happened already before. It's happened both in gaming on these services that I've mentioned, and it's happened with certain podcasts and shows where certain groups of people found out that someone else was going to do an interview with someone, and they ruined that by calling these people toxic and doing whatever they're doing to get them in trouble and get that prevented. Whether you agree with one side of that or the other people on the other side of that, I'm not getting into the mix of any of that stuff. I'm just saying this has already been done. So this will be done. This will happen. And it happened recently, actually. A guy that had a name that Sony deemed inappropriate 12, like I don't know how many years it was ago that he created it, like 7 something
Suddenly
years.
Suddenly got banned.
He got banned. He lost all his library, lost everything he had. He's done. His entire collection is gone. Money down the drain. Nothing to show for it, and there's nothing he can do about it.
And that was a name that was created many, many years ago. And, you know, if the name, I don't know what the name was and how the decision was made, but if the name was created many years ago, it's like all of a sudden, because sensitivity is increasing, and it's kind of a cultural thing, sensitivity is increasing everywhere, all of a sudden it's inappropriate, and bim, bam, boom, there goes your digital library.
Yep.
So that's a very valid concern. In fact, when I saw his question, I was like, I kind of had subliminally the same thought when I was listening to the same speech. So it's going to be interesting to see where this leads, and maybe not in the most positive of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure this conversation will continue to the live show. And it's great that we have Mr. Boomstick as a member, because he has vastly different views on pretty much everything.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is great, because the thing with you and I is that we have great chemistry, we have a great professional working relationship, but we agree on literally 99.9% of everything all the time.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why we have completely different backgrounds. It doesn't make any sense.
It's pretty hilarious.
But we always seem to agree.
I'll be interested to see what he thinks about this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where he goes with it. You know, we've talked a little bit, so we can definitely continue that going forward. And
I have a lot more to say about this, and I have
know.
I mean, I feel like I might be on another unpopular side of something, so I'm not necessarily looking forward to that. But it'll be interesting to see what he thinks and what the chat thinks as well, since we'll be live.
Yes.
This is a conversation I think we'll.
I'm glad you brought that up. So the live chat for the live show next Wednesday, that'd be interesting to see what people think about these types of things if we do get into that conversation on the first show.
Yeah.
And then also in our comments section, our audience is great about letting us know what they think.
Let us know so that we can take those.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, we're going to post it as a link in the description.
Yeah.
You can read the little article that accompanies with it and then watch the video. It's in the link, so you can see what you think, and we'd love to hear the various different reviews that we get from people that follow us.
Yeah, we'll collect those up so that we can have them for when we do go live and for the next live show, and we'll keep this conversation going and integrate some of you guys' opinions and thoughts as well.
Yeah.
So also a continuing conversation that will continue for a long time is the whole idea of Games Pass. And, you know, generally speaking, from a consumer standpoint, Games Pass is very popular. I mean, nobody in their right mind is going to go $10 a month for all of the AAA first-party games.
Yeah.
Is a ripoff, right? Nobody's saying that. But there has been a lot of conversation on the end of, is this a good business decision? Is this good for Microsoft or not? And of course, the comparison everybody's making is Netflix versus Games Pass.
Yeah, it's still the best one.
It's still the best one.
Just like, you know, with the video game console thing, there isn't a great comparison to consoles, so we always use cell phones because it's the closest thing.
It's the closest darn
but Netflix is really darn close to Game Passes.
Some of the comparisons that are made there are good and some of them are bad. And I'm going to reference a specific Twitter conversation, and I'm going to shout out somebody who actually tagged us into this conversation.
Yeah.
This Twitter conversation ended up with like 150 tweets in it. I'm not even kidding. So shout out to Free Jack, who ended up tagging us very late into a conversation that had been going on for a long time. And I'll sum up the conversation really simply by saying you had some people who were pro Games Pass and some who were anti Games Pass. And the people who were pro Games Pass were basically saying that you can liken, both of them were likening Netflix to Games Pass. The people who were saying Games Pass is going to work because Netflix works were saying, look at the revenue of Netflix, and Games Pass can stand to do the same. The people who were saying Games Pass will fail were saying, look at the profitability of Netflix, or lack thereof, I should say, profitability of Netflix, and look at the fact that Netflix is in debt. Now, I'll mention a couple of things. You're the true expert on this, so I'm going to turn it over to you in a second. I'll mention something that's sort of off the beaten path. Sure. There are some overheads that I think people aren't thinking about. Netflix has, in terms of the debt and the lack of profitability from a Netflix standpoint, they have a lot of overhead. They have to pay for all of that. They don't own most of their content. And if you notice, they're trying to progress year over year to where they do own content. And that's where you see their Netflix original series. They're having to put a lot of money into those, but they own the royalty on those. Because everything that you're watching that was made by, you know, Warner Brothers and Century 21 and all of those are all somebody else's content. They have to pay for that.
Yeah.
For them to give that to you, they have to pay royalty to whoever made it, which is a lot of different parties, and it's expensive. So Microsoft doesn't have, basically with Games Pass, they're not acquiring any new overhead that they didn't already have.
These games were already in development. They're already coming as they were.
So they do have overhead in making games, certainly, but they already had it all.
It was all the costs that are there. They were already there. They were going to be there no matter what happened with Game Pass.
So when Netflix started up, I've been doing that all day. When Netflix started up, they had to pay for all of that, and on a continuing basis, they have to pay for all of that.
Yep.
When you're just making a comparison of Games Pass. They're not acquiring anything new.
It's just another revenue stream.
They might lose some overheads because they're not having to put out as much physical.
Yeah.
So that's a comparison to consider, is they don't have to create any new overheads for themselves.
Yeah, and I've said before that Microsoft have their analytics for all their different subscription services. I'm subscribing to, I think, 4 different things from Microsoft. There might actually be more. I need to look at what I have because I have more than one account. So if you count the 2 accounts, it's probably more than that. With Game Pass, that adds another thing. So it's just another revenue stream. So it doesn't matter that Netflix, let's take the debt argument. It doesn't matter that they're in debt. Look at their market cap. Look at where their market cap is right now today versus where it was 10 years ago. That's what people care about. That's what investors care about. Look at the stock price. Look where it is today versus where it was at any point in time in the past. That's what people care about.
So you're seeing growth. You're seeing a lot
basically
of growth.
What we're talking about, and I've referenced this before for people that have watched every episode that we've had, is infinite growth, essentially. That's what we want to see. That's what you want to see, that market cap increasing. You want to see the stock price increasing. You want to see their growth and their revenue streams increasing over time. That's a great thing across the board. You can even have like 1 or 2 of those things going pretty well and be shrinking in something else, and those 2 things are going to overpower it. So having all 3, that's incredible. Netflix is in a great spot. Yes, their debt is big, and it's only going to get worse. But that's not going to cause people to dump their stock. That's not going to cause their market cap to shrink. They're growing right now, and that's what matters. That's why this is a smart thing to do. That's why Game Pass is an incredible thing to do. It's, again, like you said, they were making those games. Gears 5 was already in development. Halo 6, whatever. Seas of Thieves, all of these games were already in development. Yeah. Opening up that revenue stream to people that would not have purchased those games, it's genius. Every day that goes by, it was a no-brainer. I said it right away. I was one of the first people to come out and say, this is a no-brainer. Definitely. There is no fault in what Microsoft is doing here. Yeah. There's a lot of things we can debate about Microsoft, up and down, back and forth, and say this is wrong, good, or bad. This isn't one of those things. This is one of the things that every bit of information that comes out is even better. Now we're finding out they're getting 8 new games next month. Somebody told me that they were guaranteed to get 6 games. I never saw that. That post that Microsoft said that they're doing 6 games a month. So I don't know if that's 100% certain.
Like bringing in third party?
Well, one of them is a third party. Rise of the Tomb Raider is a third party game. Oh, okay. And if you go and you investigate all the games that are in there right now, they clearly already have third party involved. They already have some partnerships with some third parties.
And as soon as you get third parties involved, that's really smart. Yep. Because you're taking share from other
we talked about this weeks ago.
Yeah. So and the thing about debt specifically is every company
has it at some point in time, and a lot of companies actually never really get out of it. You have to spend money to make money. It's that old adage. And there are companies that really know how to grow. They really take that to heart. They really spend money to make money. Definitely. Netflix is one of those companies. Microsoft is obviously one of those companies. Every company I've ever worked for, only one was cash flow positive.
And that's a big deal when you hear that.
Yes, it is.
And it's very rare. It's interesting because it's a big deal, and investors make a big deal of it. But companies that are cash flow positive actually don't have more investors. They don't have a more expensive stock price. It's just assumed that companies are in debt. People are in debt. Mm-hmm. Anyone pretty much who owns a house is in debt.
You got to keep in mind, the system is set up for us all to be in debt.
The system is set up for people
We're supposed to be in debt. Every company is supposed to be in debt. Everything is.
So that's pretty normal.
Yes.
And right now, really, the Netflix debt is intentional. They're trying to get more ownership of themselves and their content. Yeah. So that they're not paying as much royalty.
The only problem I could see if anybody wants to create an argument against Netflix is that, and this is debatable because people have different tastes. Yeah. And this is the quality of the content. It gets worse the more they add. Yeah. I've been saying this for 2 years. You heard me say that 2 years ago. You heard a conversation between me and my buddy that works for Marvel, where we both agreed that it's very mediocre quality content, and that's going to continue. You're going to see more mediocre type stuff. I know most people disagree with me. Most people love Netflix and they think it's great, which is good. It's good that you're appealing to the masses instead of me. Right. Makes sense.
They're getting lucky somehow on that.
Yeah. So that's the only argument I can give anyone on any of that stuff. Yeah. Otherwise, Game Pass, incredible. I know we'll continue talking about this. Boom has his viewpoint on it, and it's very similar to mine on that as well. So
I will say this. So I've always been I've never been super against it, but I've definitely been on the fence of waiting to see. We've heard a lot of people talking about buying an Xbox for it. Increasingly. Yeah. So I'm seeing more and more and more of that, which was one of the things I said you've got to see that happening for it to work. And then I'm still seeing, we have access to hundreds and hundreds of people that we know that are in the hardcore group.
Yes.
And I'm seeing so many people that are like, well, I'm still buying it. I don't even know why. But the vast majority of us are like, oh, well, I do have Games Pass, and I'm still buying that game.
I've actually received several.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I've received several texts and messages from people that I've known for many years. Some of them don't have an Xbox, and they're saying they're going to buy when it get this. Yeah. Some of them do have an older Xbox, one of the other SKUs. They're saying they're not buying anything. They're saying they're going to upgrade to X to take advantage of it because Game Pass is going to save them money essentially. So those people aren't spending $10 a month on average, I'm assuming. I don't know. Most of them are casual. Most everybody is casual. There's not a lot of hardcore. We're always outnumbered. So yeah, most of them are casual. But yeah, the fact that it's creating a halo effect around Game Pass. Everything around it, everything that touches it, is going to have a benefit now.
Very interesting. It will be interesting to see it keep growing. But I mean, Microsoft doesn't make very many. I have to say very many. I can't say they don't make any bad moves, but they don't make very many. Well, and we are seeing their effects.
There's a lot of people that would disagree with you and say that they make nothing but mistakes. Especially if you listen to...
There are a lot of people that think that. They don't tend to be people who know a whole lot about business and who look at the revenue numbers and the investment numbers, but I don't see very many mistakes coming from them, and I do see the result that they apparently saw. I do see that now happening.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said that because it was looking at the keynote speech that we referenced earlier. I think you got to have a lot of confidence to pull that off. To pull off
seriously
what Phil did on stage.
Yeah,
and maybe they know something that everyone doesn't know about what's coming at E3. So we'll see.
It's got to be something like that because that is
swagger on a level I have not seen. And
everybody talks about wanting that from Microsoft, and nobody's calling out the fact that was one of the most, I don't want to use the word arrogant because that wouldn't be the right, one of the most confident speeches you could do. It sounded like it was at an HR summit.
It did, yes. We've seen that
before.
I
thought I was at an HR event because I've been to a great many of those, and I felt like that was where I was, and that requires some serious confidence for that to be the foot that you put forward. So that was interesting. And I can't wait to see more conversations on that because that was really fascinating.
No one's going to stop talking about this.
So we have about 5 more minutes. Do you want to talk a little bit more about G4G Live, or do you want to talk a little bit about Walking Dead?
Let's do the live thing first, then go into Walking Dead and cut it off.
So Wednesday, 5 Central, 6 Eastern, G4G Live.
Yes.
The general idea behind this is not to be a podcast, not to be a particular type of show, just to have a lot of randomness, honestly. Like, the only thing that's going to be rigid about this is the fact that we'll be live. We have webcams, we have microphones, and we'll be live.
Essentially, yeah.
Other than that, and we have 1.5 to 2 hours of time. Yeah. Other than that, we might do a lot of different types of things with the show. We hope to show up a couple times a month. No guarantees on timing and showing up.
If news stays good, then we will. If not, then it'll be once a month. As long as we have something
to talk about and the time to talk about it, we'll be there. But really, we plan to do a lot of different things. We hope to grow it into a lot of different things.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, essentially, the only thing I can ask is that the audience just be patient because, we're working with Boom, who's now a pro at doing shows, doing podcasts, doing everything, doing every type of video. On his channel, he already knows how to do everything there is to do.
He does.
So he's a pro. We've only been on a couple. Yeah. We've only been out there a couple times. So, give us a couple months to kind of warm up to it. We're going to show you something really special in the future. We're working on some things. And I'm not talking about coming months. I'm talking like coming years. If you stick with us, you're going to see some really cool stuff coming up. So
definitely. Yeah.
Stuff that hasn't really been done because you kind of costs money, kind of like you got to spend money to make money kind of thing.
And spend time.
And time, yeah. And so if it would have been easy, people would have been doing that stuff already.
We like all of our stuff to be really quality, and we do everything ourselves. Yeah. And we want it to be something really big and really high quality, so it takes a lot of time, which if you've been with us for a while, you already know that about us and our content. So
hopefully you think that, yeah.
Hopefully you think that.
How much time left?
We have about 5 minutes.
You said 5 minutes 5 minutes ago.
We have approximately 5 minutes. Okay. I'm trying to be safe on time because you know that thing has a habit of turning off.
So the gaming portion's done. We're just going to speak a little bit about Walking Dead.
So Walking Dead's coming Sunday.
Yeah.
And there's some interesting things going on. I'll just give you this segment and I'll toss something in if I have it.
Yeah, okay. So we learned that Lauren Cohen, who plays Maggie, has signed on for a pilot, basically. So there's a good chance she could be leaving. There was kind of a back and forth where she was wanting to get a little bit more money. She wanted to get as much as the two main characters that are on the show, which is understandable. You can definitely see why you would want that and why you should get paid.
And you're talking about Rick and Daryl.
Yes, yeah. Rick and Daryl. Why you should get paid a little closer to that. She wasn't asking for the same amount apparently, but something close. The only problem with that was the Maggie character isn't that prominent though. She's not in a lot of episodes, to be honest.
That's true.
She's not as integral as some of the other characters. They've even started, you can actually go back and take a look at some of what's been going on over the last season and a half or so. They've even started giving some lines that were her lines from the graphic novel to other characters. One of the best lines was, she believes in Rick Grimes. She goes, I believe in Rick Grimes. It was a whole page in the graphic novel. They gave it to Rosita. So I could easily see them. You remember that happened here this season?
Yeah.
I could easily see them transitioning away from Maggie and killing off that character, or doing maybe something else with that character.
Yeah.
And giving more of that storyline to someone else.
Really, Walking Dead has proven that although they aren't like a Game of Thrones where they just kill off whoever, they can truthfully take off the main characters. The thing about Maggie is she's got a baby coming.
Yeah.
And the baby's a problem.
It's a major problem for a show that moves at a slow pace. For a show where time actually is condensed. One season could be a couple weeks. Yeah. Could be a month. And you've got a baby there that's growing at the speed that we are all aging.
You're talking about like 30 actors
major
to make
problem.
This baby happen.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, even other than the logistical issue of a baby, it's a hard character to do in that universe. It's not an interesting character to have. You already have Rick with a baby.
Yes, yeah. So he's got his baby Gracie that he's got to take care of.
And I don't know that
his other daughter.
Yeah. So that should be interesting to see what they'll do.
How complicated do you want this to get?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could see that being really unentertaining because there's just babies everywhere. There's just kids everywhere.
Yeah. And this show will probably air a day before, or the same day as the new episode coming out. So that's going to be awesome.
That's going to be really exciting to see what they do. You had a prediction. Do you want to say what your prediction is?
No, I'll because it's too there's too much spoiler to it. So if you haven't caught up yet, it'll mess things up. But we'll talk about it on the live show for sure.
Yes, so we're going to do a segment similarly at the end of the live show on this. So.
Definitely, yeah.
That it for Walking Dead?
That's pretty much it, yeah.
I think we made it, so we'll find out in a second. Okay. All right. Thanks for watching.